What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Last week there was a meeting between the representatives of the United States and Ukraine in Saudi Arabia. 30 days ceasefire agreement was proposed, but Russia declined it, saying that they have some conditions of their own that they want to present. As expected, this requirement was basically the total surrender of Ukrainians. One question here, though. If you want the regime of Zelensky to capitulate completely, why then you even need this 30-day ceasefire? Will it not mean that the war is finally over? But at least that's the logic of Putin right here. But anyways, less than a week later, it was now Russia who proposed their own conditions for a partial ceasefire. Among them was the promise that neither country attacks the energy infrastructure of the enemy. Both sides agreed to that condition. As a result of all this, the talks about a possible war-ending scenario started to appear in the Russian media as well, and the Russian recruiters are now trying to seize the last opportunity to sign just a couple more contracts in order to meet their monthly quotas. These new ads pretty much say, "We're about to wrap this up, so hurry up, join the army for these sweet paychecks, do it now." They are tossing in pictures of Donald Trump himself, promising still huge sign-up bonuses, extraordinary monthly salaries, crazy debt relief, and free ticket to get you started on your brand new life of glory. What they don't tell, however, is that usually these are one-way tickets. The whole thing sounds like a bizarre stunt from a parallel universe where propaganda meets a carnival sideshow. And yet, it is happening right now on Russian social media, circulated by local officials who likely thought it was a stroke of genius. Does the Trump administration's foreign policy make any of this more plausible? Not really. Does the quick chatter about a ceasefire automatically mean the war will end tomorrow? Also no.
We're going to see if we can work a peace agreement, a ceasefire and peace, and I think we'll be able to...
But these illusions have traction among those who either do not know any better or are plain desperate. So today, let's dive into the deeper picture of how, after months of punishing warfare, the narrative in Russia has shifted from fighting the Nazi threat to "the war is nearly over, sign up fast." Because in the end, for the people lured into uniform, it's not about glamorous posters or promises of eternal glory. It's about getting a big fat paycheck while trying to dodge a bullet, literally while still the conflict rages on with no sign of a clean exit strategy. The moment you say peace talks or a ceasefire, everyone starts paying attention, especially in Russia. After all, the conflict in Ukraine has been going on since February 2022, with the bloodshed showing no real signs of stopping. As a matter of fact, if you take a look at the casualty numbers, the less coverage the war gets, the more casualties appear. That is a paradox. When Saudi Arabia hosted a fresh meeting between American and Ukrainian officials, with Russia omitted from the guest list, everyone started asking the very same old questions. Could this be it? Could they finally be negotiating the end? I hope so. But those who have followed the war closely know that any major shift in foreign policy requires a countless behind-the-scenes deals. You don't just waltz in, sign a piece of paper and pop champagne, even though that would make things so much easier. Instead, it is an intricate dance of conflicting interests, leverage, compromise, ego testing, and face-saving agendas. But that has not stopped Russian recruiters from milking these talks for all they're worth. They post ads telling citizens that the war closure is near. Some of these ads even feature Donald Trump, a man who has had a complicated relationship with Russia in the public eye, to say the least, but now portrayed as he is personally endorsing a sign-up bonus for the Russian army. It is an easy sales pitch. You either buy into the notion that a ceasefire is around the corner and just pocket the money, hoping to keep it, or you remain skeptical and miss on such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And unfortunately, for many, the promise of debt relief and alleged financial freedom is too tempting to dismiss. Those people who entertained the idea in the past of getting rich quick now see that right now is the best and the safest time to ever do it. But is it, though? From a distance, this entire show might look comedic, like a parody of a typical marketing. But behind the punchline of seeing Trump in Russian uniform or a tagline urging you to hurry up and snag the benefits, there is a very dark subtext. The government is pushing the idea that if you do not join right now, you will miss on this incredible opportunity to solve your financial problems once and for all.
Russia's defense industry is sucking up all of the viable recruits. Russia is also dealing with a drop in birth rate that has persisted since the 1990s, meaning there's a shortfall of young workers entering the job market. Combine those two issues with Oleg Buklemishev's statement that regular Russian businesses are quickly running out of money, and you get a powder keg that can only lead to one thing: the complete collapse of every Russian business sector that isn't being propped up by the Ukraine war.
Meanwhile, talk of the possibility that these negotiations might fail or that the fighting could erupt with renewed intensity at any moment is conveniently swept under the rug. It is like promoting a magic pill that will make you lose weight and not talking about the potential side effects, which also conveniently includes death. Speaking about recruitments, you guys definitely know about the Freedom of Russia Legion and Russian Volunteer Corps. By the way, you can buy these Adidas hats with the Freedom of Russia Legion flag in our store, which is therussiandude.com. The link is down below. But what's more, it is that the latter recently released their own recruitment promotional video, and it is packed with action. We don't think it will be allowed to show this on YouTube, but you can check the full version on our Patreon, the link down below as well. If you ever wanted to support our work but did not know how to do it, buying our very own merch as well as Patreon subscriptions is literally the best way to do it. Thanks so much, and now let's continue. In a country where official statements and propaganda campaigns shape many people's worldview, the phrase "hurry up" has become the main selling point. Recruiters are using the old urgency trick, similar to that cheesy marketing line, limited time offer. And yeah, I'm guilty myself. Many local administrations in Russia have posted or shared messages calling citizens to sign on the dotted line before the war ends. They imply that a big payoff awaits those who join in at the last minute. Sometimes they supplement this with unverified stories about how crowded the local draft offices become. Sometimes they even say, "We had so many volunteers, we had to turn down some of them." So definitely come and enlist as soon as possible, before it's too late. A random social media profile, also suspiciously located on the other side of the country, might even pop in to leave some comment, "Guys, I just happened to pass by the draft office and people were lining up. No surprise, they offer so much money, so hard to resist." But if you look closely, it all makes sense. It reads as though written by a bot, or at least by someone who never stepped foot in these remote towns. Yet casual observers might think, if so many are showing up, maybe it's legit. In reality, behind all the cheerful posters, the contract is likely a blueprint for prolonged misery or even a one-way trip to the front lines. The obsession with urgency is reminiscent of old comedic sketches. You might even recall an episode from The Simpsons where Homer was being sold on microphones by a sleazy typical salesman on TV. "Last chance, we are nearly sold out, only a few left to stock, call now," he said.
"Order now, supply is limited."
Limited? Do you have any of those microphones left?
Yeah, a couple.
It's all about bypassing the target audience's critical thinking. Once you apply pressure, you reduce the time people spend weighing their opinions. And with something as high stakes as war, that's exactly what recruiters want. Make it quick. Let the adrenaline or desperation push men to sign a deal they cannot easily escape. Which in return, if you think about it, makes the situation for them completely horrible. If Russia, let's say, experiences a severe shortage of manpower along the front lines, of course they would want to end the war as soon as possible. And with potential war's end being visible in the rear-view mirror, many men decide it is their last chance to get rich quick, while hoping they will not even need to fight. And the more people like these sign up, the more soldiers appear on the front lines. Meaning that the regime of Putin no longer feels the pressure to end war soon. Well, as you can see, the greed became these people's downfall. But let's talk about reality. Even if the war were somehow ending in a few weeks, which looks incredibly unlikely but hopefully, you can still die in that short window. There is no money in the world that could resurrect you. There is no, I can just ride it out in the rear lines kind of scenario, when the Russian military machine treats its recruits like disposable manpower. Reports from pro-war bloggers like Anastasia Kashevarova have spilled brutal truths. She is no peace activist. She is part of a nationalistic non-profit and has ties to the mainstream military channels. Yet, she has highlighted stories of men shipped off to the battlefield only days after signing the contract. She described half-recovered soldiers who are missing limbs or dealing with severe trauma, forced right back into combat zones. Why would the authorities do this if the war is about to allegedly end? That question alone should tell you everything. High Command does not care about deploying men who can hardly stand, let alone run or fire a weapon accurately. Someone with an injured arm or a shattered leg in a metal frame or a bullet lodged next to the heart is deemed somehow fit for duty under this twisted logic. They are told to attack a patch of land no one can even explain the strategic importance of, simply because an officer gave the order and no one wants to be charged with desertion. The lure of quick money is not helping these men, it's burying them. Official networks sometimes acknowledge these tragedies, but they're careful not to question the war's premise, only the system's inefficiency or occasional cruelty. They might present the story as a glitch, like something out of the ordinary, confusion over paperwork. But we know that how these glitches keep repeating themselves. Recruits vanish on the battlefield days after signing up, or they are pressured to keep fighting even with how their bodies broken. The system feeds on warm bodies, not on well-being or logic, and it certainly does not care about these people's illusions or a swift victory or easy downfall. Now, while everyone's busy talking about whether Donald Trump might twist Vladimir Zelensky's arm into a quick ceasefire or partial agreement, remember that the real standoff is between Zelensky and Vladimir Putin. Trump pushing for a resolution is a side quest. Putin himself has not backpedaled on his territorial claims yet, which are literally etched into the Russia's modern constitution. He still insists that the entire regions, Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson and Zaporozhye, belong to him, despite not even being able to fully control them. Imagine Mexico amending their constitution to include the entire state of Texas, and then launching a special military operation to protect indigenous Mexicans on the territory of Texas. And then try to prove to the world that Americans are the real aggressors. That is precisely what is happening right now between Russia and Ukraine, and somehow it feels like Putin is about to get away with this nonsense. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov restated earlier this year that Russia will not just freeze the conflict along current front lines. That means no matter how the future US-Ukraine talks turn out, the fundamental discrepancy still remains. One side refuses to abandon its territorial fantasies, and the other refuses to let its own land to be stolen. The biggest clue that this war is not unfortunately about to end is the frantic push for new recruits in places like Novosibirsk or across other remote regions in Russia. If the Kremlin truly believed in a lasting ceasefire was a done deal, why put so much effort into stuffing more men into uniforms? Why keep the propaganda machine humming about amazing benefits and the chance to wipe out your entire debts overnight? The leadership is preparing for a scenario in which the conflict drags on, possibly in some new shape or with different intensity. And if there happens to be a genuine slowdown in the fighting, the generals might decide to hurl every last recruit into the final offensive, hoping to just gain a better bargaining position. Exchanging lives of men for just cards. Anyone thinking about signing up because it's only a few weeks until peace is placing a dangerous, life-threatening bet. A misguided one too, since many front lines have seen men deployed into highly active combat zones right away, within 10 days of placing the initial signature on a piece of paper back in their own hometowns. There is no lengthy boot camp for a volunteer who has already accepted the paycheck. You are rushed through minimal training, handed in a rifle, and told to hold on at range or assault a town.
Hernias, plates in your head. I was told you're fit for mobilization, he says, so stop saying you can't. I live on pills, so if I go, you'll be doing your tasks like everyone else.
In the worst cases, recruits are given tasks completely unrelated to what they sign up for. A driver might end up in the front lines in the infantry. A would-be drone operator might become a foot soldier. Because once that contract is inked, you belong now to the machine. You took this informed decision, so it is up to you to face the consequences, with a major side effect of potential death. Well, there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, please go ahead and buy our merch at therussiandude.com or become Patreon members. This is a really good way to support what we're doing. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.